because we're tired of being unemployed and underemployed. We are tired of only having to engage in sex work. We are tired of being your outreach people and your peer navigators making $10 to $12 an hour. We are tired of fighting for our country on foreign soil and then being told that we are no longer fit to serve. We are tired of our murders going without any justice and our murderers out there free. We want to be free. And that's why we are here.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. What an amazing video, and what an honor and a privilege it is to be with you here this afternoon. My name is Zeke Christopoulos, and I use he, him, and his pronouns, and I represent Truist Financial Corporation. A little bit of background about me is that I am a transgender man of trans experience, transitioned back in 1999, and have been working in and for our community for non-binary and transgender rights for a number of years. And alongside of that, I also have had a career in financial services, and I've been with Truist for the past 8 years, and very proud to bring information to you that I hope will be helpful and assist you in making your lives more resilient and strong. So with that, just need to make sure. Danny, can you let me know if the presentation is up, please? All right. So we have got a presentation for you today from Truist, financial information for the non-binary and transgender community. Today, we're going to go over just a brief bit about basics of banking. We'll talk about community challenges and our barriers to access. We'll give some ideas around how to pick an LGBTQ positive institution. We'll talk about overcoming fears, navigating financial institution strategies. We'll talk about the information that banks need for our name changes, and also what to do prior to legal name change. That definitely includes names and pronoun tips on both sides of that. We'll talk about the credit bureaus and credit score information and how that impacts us. We'll talk a little bit about needs and priorities, budgeting, and share a few financial life hacks. So there's my picture. This is like pre-COVID, post-COVID, different haircut, etc. But anyway, very happy to be with you here today. And please, if you have any comments or questions, go ahead and put them up in the chat. We'll be monitoring that. All right, so banking basics. We're going to go over this quickly. I think many people understand what banks are, and we know that for the most part, it's difficult to operate cash only. You know, in our economy today, we've got Venmo, we've got Cash App, we've got traditional banks. We've also got some other places that navigate finances. The main thing that I want to convey today is to consider your needs and to shop around for financial products and services. Everybody needs to put some coins back into their own pocketbooks and wallets, and it's important to look at the fees that are associated with everything that you utilize. So, of course, for financial institutions, many of us are familiar with banks and credit unions. Banks have customers, credit unions have members. Banks typically have no membership criteria. Credit unions do. Both of them accept deposits of money, both lend money, and they may offer other products and services like credit cards, car loans, personal loans, mortgages, etc. So with that, you really want to take a look at what their fee structures are. Banks and credit unions are obligated to share that information with you prior to you signing up for an account. So be an informed consumer. See if there's a monthly charge on your account. See if there are any account waivers for that. Also, one thing that's really important with banks and credit unions are to understand overdraft protection, and you can indeed opt out of that and not get those overdraft charges. So that's something very important, I think, for many of us to understand. The money that you put inside of a bank is safe. It's insured by the FDIC, or for credit unions, the NCUA. And this goes up to pretty large dollar amounts. For the FDIC, it's at least $250,000 per depositor. So when you have your money in the bank, there is some insurance there. If you lose your bank card, you don't lose all of your money, for example. All right, so just some real basics here: deposit products or savings accounts, checking accounts, certificates of deposit, money market accounts, and there's rules around how much you can put in, not around how much you can put in, but the frequency with which you can deposit and withdraw funds on these accounts. So it's important for you to understand those. With credit products, there's credit cards, lines of credit, installment loans, and mortgages. These are all things that can be accessed, and we'll be talking about credit a little bit further in our presentation today. So outside of banks, actually within banks, other products and services include cashing checks, creating money orders, issuing debit cards, issuing cashier's checks, ATMs where you can access cash around the clock, usage of online banking and mobile deposit, which are great ways to send money back and forth through person-to-person payments, which are also available. Now, other financial service providers include convenience stores, the post office, stores that sell prepaid cash cards, check cashing stores, payday lenders, pawn shops, and vehicle title lenders, all of which are ways that we can use and utilize these means to conduct our finances. The important thing with this, again, is to understand the fees that are incurred by using those services. Looking at that percentage, from spending $1, are they taking 20 cents? Are they taking 5 cents? That's the all important piece there to keeping those coins in our pockets. So wanted to just briefly touch on some basics, but mostly talk more about our community and issues that we face, how to overcome some of our fears, and get some success strategies for navigating, as well as finding an LGBTQ plus positive financial institution that you can work with. And also, Danny, do we have any questions at this time? Let's see. I see my issue is the daily withdrawal limit, no matter which card I use. So that sounds like with your ATM card. Great item there. Many different financial institutions have different levels of the amount that you can withdraw on your ATM card. And some of them do have the capability of changing that amount. Sometimes they can move that amount higher or lower depending on your request. So I would recommend to call your bank or financial institution, see what their daily withdrawal limit is. I think you know what it is already, and see if that's something that they can change for you. If that's something they can't change, you might make a few inquiries, online chats or phone calls with other financial institutions to see what their limits are and if that is something that can flex or change. So awesome. That is just a great question. Thank you for that. All right. So with our community, I think we're pretty familiar with challenges. We do have them almost at every turn sometimes, it seems. So documentation is a big deal for us. That photo ID mismatch, I definitely remember walking into a bank and the picture on my ID did not look like the man that they saw standing before them. They were like, "Where's your girlfriend? Where's your wife? This isn't your ID." So that's something I think we all have experienced. Name change is a big deal too. Sometimes it's hard to even get our name changes done. We'll talk more about name changes later on in the presentation. But having different names on different pieces of ID and also on different places in our financial lives is a challenge that we face. That gender marker can also be an issue. If somebody wants to see your ID before you cash your check and they're looking at that, that's something that we face as well. And then, I definitely have had people write checks to my new name before I changed my legal name, and then negotiating that check was very hard and sometimes embarrassing to go back and have to get them to write the check to a different name, to my government name rather than the name that I go by. Affording transition needs, also a big deal for us. Gender affirming garments, everything from a whole new wardrobe to all the things that we use to affirm who we are in our genders, binders, packers, shapers, patters, all of that. Therapy is something that many of us need or want, and it's important. Electrolysis and laser, hormones for some of us, surgeries also for some of us. Those are expensive, and those are definite finance challenges for us. So depletion of reserves, if we have them in the first place, right? So some of us may not have had a little savings account set aside. And if you're doing anything in the first two boxes, in that third box, your emergency savings can get maxed out, your credit can get maxed out. And if you are lucky enough to have a retirement account, borrowing against that can add up as well. We definitely face challenges that translate into financial challenges and loss of support of family, friends, school, workplace, religious organizations. So that oftentimes means that we no longer have a place to live. We might not have our job anymore. So these are all big challenges. And then denial of service. A lot of time we get that look. We have unhelpful or unwilling staff, people who just refuse to treat us, to serve us rather, and who treat us poorly, the hostile environment. And who wants to walk into a place that's got a hostile environment? And then navigating available support. It's oftentimes difficult for us to find resources, and those resources can be very limited. So, here's some of the questions we ask ourselves, especially if we go into a bank, for instance, or a financial institution. How will they treat me? Will they get my name and pronoun right? Are they going to ask rude questions? Am I going to get good service? Are they going to understand what my needs are? Will the individuals I talk to actually even follow my instructions? What if somebody refuses to serve me? And then what about the other clients in that place? Maybe the staff's treating me well, but the other clients are not. And will the staff help me out in that situation? And then what if my name, appearance, and photo ID vary from what my account titling is? Big questions, when we walk into a bank or a credit union or anywhere where we're going to conduct financial transactions. So here's a few financial navigation strategies and solutions for success. And you'll notice that these are similar from maybe some things that you've done in other situations. I think a lot of the time we employ a lot of this if we go see a medical care provider, or use other resources that that are out there for anybody to access, but especially for non-binary and transgender communities. So bringing an ally along can be a huge thing. Have that buddy, have that person who can help dissipate the stress that you're feeling, somebody who can help take your mind off of things a little bit, and also somebody who can stand up for you and have a talk about that before you go into, if it's a bank, for example, and into the bank. Say, let them know what you're okay with them doing on your behalf and where to draw the line. It's important to know that financial institutions in particular want to build a relationship with you and help you to achieve your financial goals. And, as a customer, you are their boss, basically. When you walk into a bank, you're a part owner of that building because you hold an account there. And those people report to you. You don't have to conform to what they want or what they expect. You are a customer and you are important. And if your bank doesn't see you that way, it might be time to go shopping and look around for another financial institution. So if you are getting service from a staff member, or especially if clients aren't treating you properly with respect in the lobby, see the manager, ask for the manager, ask for the supervisor, whoever's in charge, and that's a great place to have an ally there to help you as well. So experiences can vary by bank. Sometimes within the same bank, it can vary by location. Sometimes even in one location, it can vary by staff member. So make your choices accordingly. And also, a bank's never going to know what's going on if you don't let other people know about that. So you may have a supervisor in a location who really embraces the community, wants to make sure that we're all getting the help and the assistance and the service that any client is entitled to. And if there is somebody on their staff who's not doing that, you can be sure they want to know about that. Banks are graded on that. So it's very important to all of staff members that everybody gets treated with equity, dignity, and respect. Big thing that is very helpful is to ask others in your community who they use. Where do you bank? How do they treat you? Those are good questions to ask each other and to talk about. Most areas have a resource guide for our communities that list all kinds of things. Anything from competent care providers to businesses that want our business and respect us. And oftentimes you'll find banks, financial institutions, and even sometimes bankers listed in those resource guides. So check those out. Definitely there's days when we don't want to go inside of a bank. So, hey, it's a digital world. You can do just about everything without talking to a human being. So once you've got your account set up, you can use those ATMs, that online and mobile banking. You can even chat with bank representatives most of the time when you visit the website or your online banking. And then there's, even for deposits, you can do mobile deposits. You can get your paycheck direct deposited with your account set up. So all of those are good ways to navigate some of these stressors. So before we change our name legally, when you go into a bank, if you're looking to set up a new account or account services, or if you need to see somebody, you can, or if you're going up to the teller line to just conduct some business, introduce yourself by your name and the pronoun that you use. Especially when you're setting up your account, they're not going to know who you are when you just walk up. So let them know your name. You can, and then when you present your check and your ID, you can say, this is my government name, but my chosen name is the one that I just told you. All banks have notes and alerts so that other bank can see those when they look up your account or your profile. So ask for those notes to be filled in with your chosen name and your proper pronouns. And that is a good way to indicate to individuals in a bank environment the right way to respect you. And oftentimes people are going to be looking for those cues because whether we know it or not, they may be an ally and they may be wanting to do that. So how do we find LGBTQ positive financial institutions? Take a look at events like this one, look at their websites, see who's participating or sponsoring pride events or marches like this one or any other LGBTQ events. Many areas have a LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce or resource guides. Look and see which banks and financial institutions are listed as members. Or if you have other financial matters to attend to, there's other types of financial service providers that participate with the Chamber of Commerces as well. Larger national LGBTQ organizations usually have logos of those that sponsor them on their website. So again, check that out. After your programming today, go out and visit the NTVM site and see who's sponsoring. That's going to give you some good indications. Looking at the website of a bank or a financial institution will tell you a lot about their purpose, mission, and values. You may see things about inspiring and building better communities and lives. You may see things about equity. That should telegraph to anybody who's approaching that bank what they would expect to see when they walk into one of their offices. Organizations that are committed to their workers' well-being also tell a lot about their corporate culture. So websites will often list business resource groups or employee resource groups that bank or financial institution has. And you can oftentimes look at those. You can check to see if they have one for LGBTQ people. There's various corporate equality indexes out there. Look at the ratings. Some of them are rated on percentages. Some of them are rated on stars or things of that nature. So pull those up and look at them. Those are a leading indicator of corporate practices. And then last but not least, if you are looking around for a bank, step inside a few different financial institutions with a friend and see what type of reception you get. See how you get treated when you walk through the door. See if they want to earn your business. All right, so a little bit about information that banks need for name changes. Basically getting that order of name change from the Register of Deeds in the county that you live in North Carolina, for example, it's just one state, it's the pink paper, but there's always going to be an order of name change. Most of the time it'll have a raised seal on it or a stamped seal on it that you'll need to take with you. Sometimes a copy is not sufficient. You want to get that original. Now, the bank doesn't need to keep that original. They just need to see it. Once you get that order of name change, before going to your bank, you want to update your photo ID to your new name. So photo ID can be your passport, that can be your driver's license, that can be your state ID. Get that updated to your new name, and then go ahead and present that name change and updated photo ID to a banker so they can change your name on bank accounts. Some people elect to just close down accounts and open whole new accounts at other financial institutions once they've changed their names legally. That's something that you can do if you elect to do that. However, your relationship with your bank sometimes can be an indicator of the type of service that you might get. So some people want to preserve that relationship with their bank and elect to do so at the bank that they're with at that time. It's a personal choice. Everybody's got to make their own decisions for themselves and their families. So once you've changed your name, make sure you ask to have a new debit card issued to you with your name. If you have credit cards to that bank, ask them what the process is to change their credit card. Usually they will help you to send in your name change and a copy of your new photo ID so that you can get that new credit card sent out. And then you definitely want to confirm that the changes have been made by checking your next bank statement. So whether you get that in the mail or use online banking, just make sure that the change has gone on. In the age of digital systems, sometimes things can glitch. You just want to make sure that everything did go smoothly with that name change update to your profile and onto your bank accounts. All right, so a few just tips. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but in any interaction that you've got, whether it's on the phone, even in a chat, introduce yourself by the name and pronoun you use, especially if it's different from the one that you've got listed on your bank account, if it's your government name. Again, ask to have notes and alerts with your name and pronoun placed on your personal profile that the bank staff use when they look you up. Once you get your name changed, you can ask to have those notes removed, and that way nobody will know that you've ever changed your name. Use digital mobile banking if that's more comfortable for you. Again, ATMs, direct deposit, online banking, that can be more convenient and easier for most people. And then finally, it's important to find a location and a banker that you like. Use them for as much as you possibly can. It is important for you to have somebody who knows you and understands your financial priorities. Many banks will talk about what your financial goals are. And if some of those are transition related and you get a good feeling, or that you're working with an LGBTQ banker, they can help you build strategies to reach your financial goals, which do include our transition or our life trajectory goals. And those look a little bit different for us in the non-binary and trans communities. So budgeting is key as well. Budgeting is something that can be hard. Sometimes we're managing not a lot of money and it has to go a very long way. So really the basics are, again, I'm not going to get into extreme detail here, but we want to compare income and expenses. That's the money that's coming in versus what's going out. Make a list in 2 columns. So then very clearly understand where your money is going. And then make adjustments. Look at your expenses. Are there some things that I'm doing that I don't necessarily have to do? Other adjustments you can make is, maybe your bills are going to be a little bit more than your income. So what can you do to help that? I mean, we're a very creative community. We can pick up a second job. We can get a roommate or add another roommate. Things of that nature can definitely help you in making those adjustments. And then being very critical about our expenses, like sometimes it's important to buy some extras to make us feel better. And other times we might want to withhold on that just so that we can make ends meet. So you can use a spending and savings plan. You can do that daily, weekly, or monthly. Record your savings, record your spending, collect a little bit of your change. On a weekly basis, some people use an envelope system. They get paid weekly or biweekly, and they put money that is needed for rent in one envelope, utilities in another one, groceries in another, cell phone bills in another, and groceries in the last. And that's one way that you can really have a little bit of control over what you spend. Any extra funds that you have left over, you can definitely move those into a savings account. Having a separate savings account can help. A lot of times if we're using a checking account and that's the only account that we have, we can spend right through it. So having a separate savings account can be helpful. Many banks do have savings accounts that don't have a minimum balance requirement. So that's something to look into as well. And then as far as monthly, review your financial plan. What are you saving up for? Set some goals for that. And then when you hit one of those goals, celebrate your successes. There's smaller goals and there's larger goals. And over time, we can see ourselves succeeding and hitting those goals. So we definitely want to make sure to celebrate ourselves. So increasing income, can you help cover your expenses, save, or share funds? So if you're in a pinch on a one-time emergency, you can certainly sell something. Occasionally, hey, clean out what you got there in your home or your apartment. Have a garage sale. Sell some things online. Ongoing ways that you can increase your income is grab a part-time or a second job. And then over the long term, personal career development, making sure that the job that you do have is aware of the fact that you want to advance and that you're looking for that next position is key. I think a lot of the time we can go to job fairs, we can find better opportunities within the organization that we work for, or look externally. We can find a job that pays better or one that is going to move us along in our career path in a more rapid manner. So decreasing expenses, thinking about our needs, wants, and obligations. So what can I get for cheaper or use less of, like name brands versus the generic? Adjust, what can you renegotiate? Is there something that you can get a better rate on? Can you shop around for that sort of thing? And what can you do without? What can you eliminate? There's many services that we all have that we could limit. I think especially when we think about streaming services, that's a key place where sometimes people have 3 and 4 streaming services and they're not able to pay a lot of things, but they're getting that regular hit for like 4 or 5 streaming services on their funds. So this is just, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide either, but this is just a plan. You make your plan out. List what your income is. It's what you bring home every month, and then list your monthly expenses out. And then you can see how you can impact your savings on the very bottom line in purple that you see there. So that the initial plan on the left looks very different than the revised plan. And the revised plan is definitely somebody buckling their belt really tightly. So you can do this incrementally. You can do this as much as works for you and for your life. I think a lot of times mutual aid is a big thing that helps us in our community. What things can we share amongst ourselves that are on these lists? In addition to having roommates, there's other things that we can oftentimes share. So that's something to think about as well if you don't already incorporate that in your financial personal life plan. So when money runs short, how does it happen? It happens when we get unaccepted bills. It happens, we might have reduced hours at work. Definitely happens when we need to help our family members, and for those of us, we have chosen family. So maybe some of our chosen family needs a little bit of extra help. So what can you do? Again, increasing your income, decreasing those expenses. If you are somebody who has some debt, you can oftentimes consolidate your debt. So if you have a few credit cards out there, and there are some interest rates that are high on those, there are ways that you can consolidate that debt and save yourself some money. Visiting with your bank, again, either virtually on the phone, virtually through chat, calling them up on the phone, or visiting a branch can help you figure that out. And there are debt consolidation services. I would caution you to be educated about the ones that you use. Nobody should ever really be charging you to consolidate your debt. If they're charging you, that might raise a red flag. So really check them out. And also look for reviews on the organizations that you do business with as well. And then just reaching out for help, talk to others around you. See if there's somebody in your circle who is a little bit more experienced with finance, see if they can help, and then use those financial professionals. People sit in banks all day long and they work for you. They're there waiting to help you. So if you can get yourself and an ally into a lobby of a financial institution that you use, that can definitely be of service to you. And then finally, knowing which expenses to prioritize. Keeping a roof over your head is key. Being able to stay mobile so you can get to and from work or the places that you need to go to, doctor's appointments, for example. Eating healthy and affordably as much as is possible, and staying on our medicine of all kinds, whether that's hormones or anything else to help with our physical or mental well-being. Those prescriptions that we get. All right, so really quickly, a little bit about needs and priorities versus wants. So needs definitely are shelter, food, transportation, and medication. Priorities for us are gender affirming garments. It can be electrolysis if that's something that you so choose. It can be name change costs. It could be saving for surgery or other medical items that we may need. Once that category, we're looking more at entertainment, fancy clothes, new tech, cars, and sometimes that can be like, am I getting too many Ubers this month? Also, high-end clothes, shoes, and makeup. I'm monitoring the chat. We're getting some love in the chat. Thank you for that. And if there's any questions, please do pop them in. All right, so some financial life hacks. So for financial life hacks, get creative. That's a big thing. We talked a little bit about consolidating debt the smart way. So doing that with financial services that you already use. Again, if you go to a debt consolidation service and they're asking you for money, be careful with that. So with credit, maximizing your credit usage and limits is important, and use cashback features wisely. So for those of us out there who have credit and have credit cards, carrying that balance can be something that can certainly chip away at your finances, right? So if we are carrying a little bit of a balance, we want to look at the total amount that credit card allows us to access in funds. And if there's any way to avoid using a cashback feature, try to avoid that. The reason behind that is that cashback has a higher interest rate than a straight purchase does. So that's definitely something to think about. Sometimes you can get a small loan easily to consolidate some of that credit that you have out there and get it all in one payment per month and at a much lower payment. So if you owe at a few different places, you can really bring all of that together and lower your monthly payments by quite a bit. All right, so for those of us whose surgery is something that is important, that we are looking to the future to have, surgery fundraisers are a popular way for us to crowdsource. But it's important to look at the platforms that we're using and what kind of fees they might charge. All the platforms have really different parameters. Some of them even, if you don't reach your goal, you don't get the money. So be careful with what's out there. Again, talk to your people, talk to everybody around you, talk to your peers. What are you using? What has been successful for you? And the other items with that is not being afraid to share those surgery funds. And I see in chat we've got a hi. So hi, Ruby, if you've got a question, just drop it in chat there and we'll get to that as well. All right, so item number 4 is resources for low cost and no cost medical care, name change, and therapy. Those are out there. Many places around the country do have organizations that can help you to get competent, trans-affirming, low-cost or no-cost medical care. There's also some LGBTQ organizations that offer relief funds or resiliency funds. Check those out and see if there are funds that you can tap into, because that's definitely going to help you to thrive as well as survive. There's a little bit more on name changes in a moment, but I do want to mention that there's a lot of great organizations that will not only help you through the name change process, but also help you to fund it. And therapy can be important for us. There are ways that you can get free therapy as well through all kinds of nonprofits or social justice organizations in our areas. Number 5, have an educated consumer mentality. Do that bargain shopping. There's clothes closets out there. So if you're somebody who's having to refit your whole wardrobe, if you're in that moment, there's ways to do it that are low cost. Some people could even do it no cost, depending on how creative you get, again. And then I've got a second section and at the bottom here. The first item is mutual aid. So mutual aid is the concept of what we can do together is greater than what we can do alone or by ourselves. So find a network, find other trans and non-binary people, get in tight with them, because we all help each other out for the most part. And some of us have experience that others need. And you never know who's going to know what. So really working together is going to be a big deal, again, to thrive not only physically, not only emotionally and mentally, but also to thrive financially. And then the second item, professional development. If you have a job, you like your job, there's going to be people on your job who certainly are going to be able to help you to achieve the next level at that job. There's always going to be another position that you can aspire to. And if you talk to people about what your career goals are, where you want to go, where your next step is, they can definitely help you get there. Sometimes just opening your mouth and letting people know that you're interested in that is what it takes. All right, so a little bit about name change and credit items for our community. So first of all, one thing I have seen people do is restart credit under their new name. Try not to do that. It takes years to build new and solid credit history. So if you have good credit as you're going into your legal name change, there's no reason for you to lose that. It takes years for you to build that reputation. And credit takes into account how often you pay the frequency with which you pay your bills on time versus late. It looks at the credit lines that you have and how you manage your credit. And then it also looks at any defaults that you may have. So these are all important things to be aware of and to keep under control as we are working within our transition and through the trajectories of our entire lives. So credit generally follows your social security number. And as long as you're notifying your creditors, generally you will have no problem with your credit transferring to your new name. So what does that mean? What that means is, with your credit card, as soon as, or not with your credit card, with your credit, they're tracking your utilities. So as soon as you get your name changed, Look at all your utilities. If you have an electric company you work with, a gas company, your cell phone, your internet, cable, anything of that nature, you want to go ahead and send in your name change to them because they're reporting on your credit all the time. So that's a key thing. Definitely changing all your financial records. So, if you're somebody who uses banks and or credit unions, change your information on your financial accounts. You'll definitely want to do that because if you get your photo ID changed and then you go in to access money at that bank or financial institution, you're going to have a different name on your ID than is on the account. So you want to do that. If you're somebody who has credit cards, you want to change your information on your credit cards because that is one of the biggest things that's an indicator in our credit score. So get that changed as soon as you can. And all credit cards on the back of them have a 1-800 number. And also there's websites that you can visit and you can do a search on how to update my information. Typically what banks will ask you to do is to send in a copy of your new photo ID and a copy of your court-ordered name change, and then they will switch it over. But they all have different particularities. So reach out to them, find out what they need to get that changed and do it. If you're somebody who owns a home or owns a vehicle, you probably want to get your deed and your title changed over. If you've got a loan or financing on that home or that vehicle, you want to get your name changed there as well, because all of that goes into your credit score. So the last thing under that is that we need credit for all kinds of things in our lives. People run credit checks to get jobs most of the time. People run credit checks for housing as well. Applying for an apartment or if you're looking to buy a home, you're definitely going to need to have your credit tuned up and in good shape. So also, transitional needs, many of us utilize credit to access that if we can. And that means, wardrobe changes, gender affirming garments, hair removal, hair addition, medical screenings, hormone surgeries, etc. Many of us do use credit to access all of that. So that's why it's so important to be really careful with your credit and preserve it and keep it as in the positive as we can. So a little bit about changing your name in general and changing your name with credit bureaus. So changing your name in general, we all may or may not know what the process is where we live to legally change our name. Many of us do want to change our name. Some of us don't, and that's cool too. But if you want to change your name, there are places where you can research online exactly the step-by-step procedure and what is needed to change your name in the state that you reside in. There's a couple of organizations at the bottom of the screen that will help you to identify what those steps are, and also in some cases can identify organizations that will help you step by step through the process, or even help you fund that, because in some places it can cost some court fees to get that changed. Some states are more exorbitant than others. In addition to that, you need to think about the fact that you're taking time off of work to go and do a lot of this process with legally changing our name. So that factors into the equation as well. So once you have succeeded and gotten that legal name change, first of all, you want to update your name and address with Social Security and the DMV, or the Division of Motor Vehicles, for either that state ID or that driver's license. Also the passport agency. Passports oftentimes are an easier route to name change than some of these other formats. And again, if you access the resources, you can find out what's going to be the easiest for you in the location that you reside in. So once you've got your name change in hand, you've got that new ID with your awesome new picture and your awesome new name, and you've made the change with Social Security, then you can update your name and address with your creditors. Again, credit cards, loans, banks, etc., and deeds, titles, all of that. So there's 3 main credit agencies, and they differ in their policies about name changes. And our next slide will walk us through what some of those changes are. So once you have submitted all of that, the next thing that you really want to do is to get a copy of your credit report 60 days after all your name change requests have been submitted to the credit bureaus. And if you see any discrepancies, that's the time to correct them. So I want to mention a few things about credit reports. First of all, everybody has access to a free credit report once a year. You don't have to pay anything for it. It's a service. You can contact the credit unions independently to get them, or you can get that online. So don't ever pay for a credit report. Or anytime you access or apply for credit, that organization that you apply for credit with is responsible to give you a copy of your credit report. So that's something important to have in hand. So there's 3 main credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And they all have their own processes for name change. Experian basically asks you to update your name with all of your creditors. They don't have a way for you to directly change your name. And so you really have to go through all of your creditors and do all those updates. Equifax seems to be, by and large, the main credit bureau that most organizations use to issue credit, although some of them will take into account all 3 of these credit bureau scores. And oftentimes for larger loans, like say for a mortgage, if you're wanting to buy a home, for example, they will take into account all 3 of the credit bureau organizations. At any rate, Equifax asks you to mail your name change request and supporting documents, which is a copy of your photo ID usually, to Equifax at the address on your credit report. So that's why it's so important to get that credit report. The supporting documents should be official items that carry your new name, such as the driver's license and court documents. Again, for TransUnion, you can change your name directly with that agency by submitting legal proof of the name change, like the court order, to TransUnion, and then they have the address here at Box 2000 in Chester, PA. So with that, we've got a little bit of time left for some Q&A. So I might enlist Danny's help with some of this, but we are monitoring chat. What questions or comments do you have? Let's throw them in the chat, and we can talk about anything you want to talk about, anything bank and finance related. It is your time. All right, it's quiet out there. So why don't I prompt you with a question? So I guess first of all, is there anybody out there who likes the bank that they work with, or who has had a good experience with a financial organization? Because hey, we're a community and we crowdsource information all the time from each other. So I'd love to hear, if you had a good experience, maybe tell us the name of the bank and the city and state that you live in that you had that good experience in. Because I think it's important for us to share that kind of experience with each other. All right, we're still getting some crickets out there, and that's okay. We'll give it a little bit of time. And what I'll say is I'm going to give it about another minute or two. If we don't have any questions at that time, what we'll do is close out a little bit early. Okay. So we have got a question. I own a home. I have changed everything by myself over a decade ago. My title insurance, I think, company, and I think we're going to have to get another comment rolling to get the rest of that question. Okay, so the company went bankrupt and changed some things internally, it sounds like. We're still only getting a portion of your question, ma'am. And I'm totally guessing at honorifics there, and I'm hesitating because I'm not sure of the pronunciation of your name, and I don't want to get it wrong. Okay, so they changed ownership and you can't find the company. Okay. So my question would be, one, do you have a mortgage currently on your home? And if you do, is that the company that you worked with this title insurance company with? Because they might have better recourse and better access to customer service lines or to find that title insurance agency or that title insurance company and be able to access them. So I would definitely suggest, if you currently do have a mortgage, working with the organization that you have a mortgage with. And I'm going to hang here for just a moment and see if you do have a current mortgage, just so we can next step if that's not the case. Okay, ownership. You paid cash, so you can't find the organization. Something that oftentimes will be a good place to search for that sort of thing is contact the state that you live, that the title insurance company was in, where they were based. Contact the Secretary of State, because the Secretary of State will on record have the official status of that company, and they will have the contact information for the individuals who owned that company. And you should be able to get information there that can be the next step in possible ways that you can find individuals related to that title insurance company to get your question answered. The other thing is maybe looking at the Better Business Bureau. They might also know something about the company. They might know how to get in touch with somebody, or they might know if another company came in and took over some of the business that the bankrupt or defunct company had. So those are I think your next solid options. So the Secretary of State for the company in the state that the company is housed in, and this is stuff that you can all do an online search in as well. I think that you referenced doing a quit claim deed. I think that's a good way to go for changing ownership. That would definitely do it, and the seller's legal representation for sure. So I think together as a community, we just figured out a financial issue. So I'll count that as a big win. All right. So let's see. Any other questions or any other good experiences that you had with the bank that you want to share? Well, in that case, I think we will wrap it up. Again, my name's Zeke Christopoulos. I use he, him, and his pronouns. I am with Truist Financial Corporation or Truist Bank. We're located all over the place. We have robust Pride business resource group for LGBTQ and allied bankers. And we'd love the opportunity to serve you financially should you so decide. Whatever you do, I just want to make sure that you're educated about the organizations that you do business with and that you're getting absolutely the best deal and the best treatment and the best services possible. Finances are an incredible part of our resilience, and they're really very important. And so with that, I definitely want to thank Danny. They've been so helpful today. I want to thank the National Trans Visibility March. And with that concludes this session. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day and enjoy the march.
We're tired of being unemployed and underemployed. We are tired of only having to engage in sex work. We are tired of being your outreach people and your peer navigators making $10 to $12 an hour. We are tired of fighting for our country on foreign soil and then being told that we are no longer fit to serve. We are tired of our murders going without any justice and our murderers out there free. We want to be free. And that's why we are here.